And welcome back to the second hour of the intermediate writing class. This morning we're going to continue talking about the paragraph revision exercises. The second one was the EMI example. So as we discussed, to some degree or another, these paragraphs, these examples were a bit unfocused. Mostly they were just brief and way underdeveloped. A whole essay is actually needed for this topic, so we'll talk about how to break this paragraph up into separate paragraphs and expand it, how we would start to expand it into a full-length essay. It's underdeveloped. Each point is discussed very briefly, very superficially. Some of the ideas are good, but they're not well developed, and maybe a little bit kind of commonplace. There's not really evidence or support, at least not any that's cited. The proposals really are not very clear. They need a lot more development, a lot more details. Otherwise, they will sound kind of simplistic. So we need some specific solutions, ideas, proposals here. So let's head over to the computer and we'll see what we can do. Here we are, looking at the paragraph on EMI, or English Medium Instruction. We need to break this up a bit, quite a bit. So let's see, where does our introductory material end? We could say EMI advocates this will promote Korean's English skills. We could break it here. And various studies, Okay, that's going to, actually I'm going to put the however here. I'll put a thesis statement here. Part here about various studies, That's kind of more explaining the background, more the problem. You could put that in the introductory paragraph. However, I want to set up the main arguments in the body more by explaining briefly the particular problems, and in each body paragraph is going to address one aspect of the problems. So we need to talk about the problems more specifically. So again, you don't have to do a body paragraph, but in this case I am. Maybe we'll split it here, and that's going to be a next body point where I talk about the particular majors and the different needs of different majors. We are going to break this here, and then we're going to create an outline. So here's an outline. We need a thesis and an outline. So this is what I've come up with. The main thesis for the intro will be this. If Korean universities wish to implement EMI, then careful consideration is needed in how it's implemented in various majors and how it is taught. That kind of anticipates most of the main points of the body. We're going to add another main point in the body also. So then we're going to have a background paragraph. Again, this is an optional element you can include in papers where if you're mainly focusing on analysis or solutions, you can have a background paragraph that explains the problem or the issue. So we'll talk about specific problems of students in Korea and also professors in the EMI context. Main body. We are going to talk about how it should be implemented differently by department or major. Now, how the EMI requirements should be adapted to the needs of particular majors and the students in those majors, and I'll talk about examples. Okay, business students have strong English skills, and they need strong English skills. The students with the best English skills tend to be in business, international studies, English language and literature. So those are the departments for which EMI is most appropriate, especially more EMI requirements. And I'll talk about how for other departments, the EMI requirements for students and professors should be considerably reduced or more flexible. For example, not only the number of courses that students are required to take taught in EMI, but also when. It could be more like for other majors like biology, chemistry, engineering, it's maybe more appropriate to have those courses either, some of them are maybe more like elective courses the first couple of years, and any required courses would be maybe their third or fourth year of college. We could talk about elective EMI courses, and that would also maybe overlap with number 3, special EAP, ESP courses, English for academic purposes, or special purposes courses. That is, courses that are more tailored to particular majors And this is going to take some work. But for example, if you take like general freshman English, it's not really suited to a particular major necessarily, like history or philosophy or engineering. So departments could work with maybe the foreign language department, the English professors there, English teachers, to come up with some custom elective or special EAP courses. Maybe an introductory course that focuses on the vocabulary and content area, maybe more academic English conversation, discussion, presentation skills, speaking skills, and then EAP writing courses, especially for particular majors or areas, like academic writing in English for humanities, academic writing in English for social sciences, for engineers, for hard sciences, etc. Probably another paragraph. I think it would really help if, well, for EMI to work better, it would help to improve the student diversity. EMI is supposedly for the purpose, one purpose is supposedly attracting more international students. Great, we need that. But are Korean students likely to have many classes with these international students? No. And that's unfortunate, because if we have more international students and they're more integrated into various courses, especially the EMI courses, then that would help, because there are a lot of educational benefits to diversity, just associating with students from other countries. That's good for the educational experience. Koreans can learn from maybe the international students, and also attracting more Kyopo students. I mean, hey, why not? College costs in the US are just absolutely crazy. In other countries, they're pretty high. Attract more Kyopo students here, and especially in general courses and in EMI courses, if there's more mixing of Korean, Kyopo, and international students, that's going to arguably make EMI courses more effective, and it's going to be better for the educational environment. In an EMI course, for example, they form groups in class, out of class, mixed groups, Korean, Kyopo, international. They can learn better study skills and English skills from group work and from collaboration, and just from mingling and working with different kinds of students in their classes. Finally, pedagogical implementation. It shouldn't be forced upon most professors who are Korean. It should be limited. We should focus on, well, not only hiring not just Korean professors who were educated abroad. I mean, some universities have tried to do that. That hasn't worked very well. You still get Koreans who aren't confident or ready to lecture in English. Focus more on, without discriminating against Korean professors who want to teach in Korean, hire more bilingual Korean professors, Koreans who have good English skills and can easily teach in English, as well as Kyopo professors. Hire more foreign professors, and foreign professors can be beneficial. There's research showing that EMI tends to work, at least students feel more receptive and satisfied in EMI courses when the professor is a foreigner. And that's a good point. And that's one possible solution. Now, there are difficulties. Hiring a foreigner just because he or she is a foreigner isn't good. There could be cultural problems within the university, and that has happened. So that has to be done carefully. But hiring more Kyopo professors, that would be a great idea too, who could relate to the students, teach in English, sometimes explain things in Korean. Those would be great things to do for EMI. So we've got a thesis. We need to come up with some topic sentences. So put the topic sentences in here. This is a topic sentence for how EMI programs need to be tailored to the needs of the department and the students. Next, diversity, improving diversity. Topic sentence about diversity. 3, pedagogical implementation. That is getting the right people to teach this. So these are the topic sentences here. And by the way, I will make this stuff available in the Google document. So the social media example and this EMI example, I will put the revised versions, what is sort of revised. I will put it in our class Google Doc, the Google Doc workspace, so you can look at that on your own too. So let's go back to the paragraph. So we need to kind of fill out the intro, make a transition. However, EMI has not worked very well in most universities for students or professors. Probably going to focus more on the students here in this essay though. Then I can put in my thesis statement. If Korean universities should implement EMI, then careful consideration is needed about how it's implemented. Next paragraph, various studies. And so I've got one fact here about students understand 30 to 70%. Correct that. Then needs a source. So I'm going to put in a source. It's a research study. I think it was Kim. Okay, something like that. I'm going to cite the source, and of course, later I'll put the works cited with the full information about these sources. Next part about tailoring it to different departments and majors. Here, I will expand this paragraph later. I will talk about those in other majors and departments. Fewer EMI courses should be required, and least required EMI courses later on. Then I'm also going to talk about maybe at some of these points in the paragraph, I will expand on these a little bit more. That could even be a separate paragraph, talking more in detail about elective EMIs and other specialized, customized EMI courses for different majors. Here I'm going to add that totally new paragraph about improving diversity, and I'll talk about international Kyopo students. I'm going to cite sources about advantages of diversity in college classrooms, and I will cite a source, at least one source for that, and expand on that. So of course this all needs to be expanded on. This is a whole paragraph that will need to be developed later, but this shows you kind of the direction I would go. Then this part I'm going to build into a whole separate paragraph. So in the background paragraph, I will have talked about how EMI is a burden for Korean professors who do not feel confident. And I can explain a little bit more. That's unfair to professors. It's also not good for the students, because the students have trouble hearing a professor lecture in English when his or her speaking skills are not just good enough, but have to be really excellent to teach a whole class in English. It takes really good English skills to do that, because it's hard for the students and for the professors, just in terms of the mental processing that's involved in doing a second language. Then I can go on here about some research shows that EMI does work. Okay, I'll cite the article here. And then I'm going to expand on this some more. The advantages, but also the possible problems, cultural problems when you hire like foreigners. Just for the sake of hiring a foreigner, it needs to be a foreigner who really has enough familiarity and cultural attraction or background in Korea. So hiring some foreign professors, but especially hiring a lot of more Kyopo professors, Kyopo Koreans. And then I can cite a source here, studies about not necessarily EMI, but just Kyopo professors in general, and maybe a study that shows that they tend to be a good fit in Korean universities, and students relate well with them and all that. So advantages of Kyopo professors. I'll cite a source from some education paper about that. And then some kind of, don't just repeat in sum just for the sake of in sum, but just a conclusion. I'll come with a conclusion. I would again talk about the benefits, advantages of this kind of approach, an informed approach to EMI. And that's how you would do it. So the paragraph was pretty unfocused and underdeveloped, kind of jumped from point to point. Now it's got a more specific focus. It's got a clearer idea of what it's trying to say, what it's trying to argue, clear objectives. You've kind of turned it into the beginning of a whole essay. There are clear topic sentences, thesis, better logical flow of your main ideas. On our way to making more informative contents, more specific arguments and ideas that are practical and doable and feasible. Counter arguments, okay, let's hire foreign professors, but, okay, problem. They might have difficulties. Well, response, okay, you'd look for foreign professors who maybe have some cultural background with Korea, some cultural connection with Korea, like those who have Korean wives. We would be careful about hiring foreign professors, and we would also try to hire Kyopo professors. That takes care of that problem. Okay. Evidence support sources. Sources are now cited. We're in the process of adding sources and citing them, not just for the sake of sources, yay, but evidence and support for the main ideas. That's what we need to do. Now, what about sources? Let me add a few final words about sources. For your papers, especially if you're doing an education type topic, what are some possible sources? Let me give you some more ideas. We talked about a few. Some more professional, kind of not heavy academic journals, but more professional quality magazines for specific fields, specific professions, more specialists, experts who are writing for these. Chronicle of Higher Education, Times Higher Education, deal with things going on in higher education around the world. Times Higher Education tends to have a more international focus. Chronicle of Higher Ed tends to focus more on the US, North America. Those are good sources for just pure education content, stuff about education by professional educators. For psychology, including practical implications of psychology, like for learning, for education, and such. Psychology Today, which is from the American Psychological Association, or the Observer from the American Psychological Society. They kind of take psychology research, current psychology research, and they kind of bring it down to kind of more of a college level, a non-specialist, non-expert level. And this is good for people who are working in education, counseling, etc. These might be relevant. Bit more academic, Psychological Science and Public Interest deals with maybe various issues of psychology and its applications, and sometimes deals with educational aspects of psychology. Like, what do you know based on psychology about whether this is a good idea for education or not? English Today is a professional, kind of academic journal, and it deals with issues of English and English education around the world, including EMI kind of issues. If you're particularly interested in EMI, there are regularly some articles in English Today about EMI and similar issues of English education at secondary and college level, tertiary level around the world. And that's a good source if you're interested in the English or EMI aspect for your paper. Other more general sources, The Economist tends to have also good articles on relevant issues about social issues, education, politics, etc. Policy might have something relevant for you. From time to time, they do have articles about education issues. Harvard Business Review, if you're interested in a business angle, also Forbes. Harvard Business Review is more like analysis and case studies of businesses, might be interesting. Forbes and other business news magazines, not only business issues, but also politics and sometimes other important social and political issues, and even science sometimes. For sciencey stuff, and this might be science itself, science education, scientific aspects of education sometimes, learning, psychology, various science magazines out there, Science News, Scientific American, New Scientist, and various others are good sources. We talked about reputable news sources. Those that have a good reputation, they're reliable, they're credible. Domestic, we talked a little bit about domestic examples, and especially international ones. New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, those are good internationally famous news magazines, newspapers for news, including maybe news items about your type of topic. Wall Street Journal, again, more focused on business and financial news. Time, the news magazine, BBC. The Guardian, which is a British newspaper, and The Independent, those are two well-known British newspapers. Maclean's is a Canadian news magazine, sort of like the Time of Canada, like the Time magazine of Canada. It's, I think, Canada's maybe #1 news source or news magazine. Associated Press and Reuters, those are international news wire services. You can go to their websites for news, just raw news. Please do not cite these kinds of sources. Popular books, magazines, blogs, websites. Not as support for your ideas, anyway. Don't cite Wikipedia, dictionary, definitions, encyclopedias. It's kind of common, not necessarily reliable, usually not appropriate for a college paper, so please don't cite those. Don't cite a PhD dissertation because it's not something you can understand. You cannot read and understand. If you're in this class, you're not likely able to read and understand a 200-page PhD dissertation. Don't cite it. Master's thesis, same thing. Maybe it's shorter, but this is someone's first attempt at doing original research at the master's level. It may not be reliable, or it may not be something you can understand. General textbooks are kind of like Wikipedia. It's kind of maybe new to you, but it's for the field, it's kind of general information. It's not that informative. Don't cite research articles or books that you can't read or can't understand. It's just citation bling, and it's going to look fake. It's going to be obvious you don't really know what you're talking about. Don't read unpublished articles, including unpublished research articles, haven't been published in a reliable source. Don't cite materials whose reliability or credibility you can't be sure of. If you're not sure, okay, ask someone about it. Google it, do some digging into the source, into the publication, and see if it's really reliable or not. Or ask somebody, but don't cite it if you're not sure. So you've got a paragraph assignment, a short paragraph assignment due this weekend. The following weekend, your final paper is due. So please revise carefully. Please find good sources, revise based on some of the tips in these last two videos. This is the last video, the last lecture. So I wish you luck. Again, Monday I'll log into Zoom if you need to ask me questions about your paper or about anything else. Otherwise, good luck, and I hope to see you next semester. Goodbye.